There's a place in Japan where trains don't just race across the land, they race through it. Imagine a bullet train flying at over 260 kilometers per hour, not on open plains, but deep inside a living, breathing mountain. A mountain that shifts, shakes, and crumbles. A place where earthquakes are frequent. The rock is solid, and the risk of disaster is always close. And yet, somehow, engineers pulled it off. This isn't just a tunnel, it's one of the most daring pieces of infrastructure on the planet. A high-speed miracle carved straight through the heart of the Japanese Alps. Today, we're going inside the mountain to uncover how Japan built this engineering masterpiece, why it matters, and what it could mean for the future of travel. Let's go inside Japan's boldest rail tunnel ever attempted. In western Japan, there's a region tucked between the towering Japanese Alps and the rugged coastline of the Sea of Japan. It's stunningly beautiful and extremely difficult to reach. That's where the Hokuriku Shinkansen comes in. This high-speed bullet train wasn't built just to impress. It was designed to connect Tokyo with Kanazawa and beyond, in record time, by cutting straight through mountains that once stood in the way. The most incredible part of this expansion is the Shin-Hokuriku Tunnel, one of Japan's longest and most technically challenging tunnels, spanning over 13.5 kilometers. It slices through the Kurobe region, a mountainous area known not just for its scenic beauty, but also for its unstable rock formations and frequent seismic activity. The tunnel forms a vital part of the larger Shinkansen line, which has been expanding since the 1990s to bring modern transit to Japan's rural northwest. Before this tunnel existed, journeys across these mountain regions were long, slow, and unpredictable, especially in winter. Heavy snow regularly blocked older routes, but now passengers can travel from Tokyo to Suruga in just over 2.5 hours, cutting previous travel times by nearly half. It's a game changer not just for commuters, but for local economies that have long been isolated. Building this line wasn't optional, it was necessary. Japan is an island nation with limited space and a growing need for reliable, ultra-fast public transport that connects cities, villages, and everything in between. But to make it happen, they had to solve one massive problem. How do you safely build a bullet train line straight through some of the most unforgiving terrain in the world? This wasn't just about digging a hole through a hill. The Japanese Alps are a living, breathing geological puzzle. Deep underground, the rock is anything but uniform. One moment it's hard granite, the next it's soft clay. Some sections are soaked in groundwater, others are laced with fault lines that shift without warning. Add to that the fact that Japan is one of the most seismically active places on Earth. The tunnel runs through areas that regularly experience tremors and even full-blown earthquakes. This means the engineers weren't just building against the clock, they were building against nature itself. Then comes the pressure of speed. Bullet trains aren't your average locomotives. They move fast, really fast. The Hokuriku Shinkansen travels up to 275 kilometers per hour. At that speed, even the smallest vibration or misalignment in the tunnel can be dangerous. So the margins for error were razor thin. Every decision had to balance safety, durability, and velocity. Engineers had to consider how shock waves from earthquakes would travel through the mountain and affect the tunnel structure. How to handle the heat and pressure buildup inside such a long, enclosed space. And most importantly, how to make sure passengers wouldn't even feel a bump as they shot through the mountain at lightning speed. On top of all of that, they had to plan for snowmelt, seasonal flooding, and landslides that could affect the entrances and ventilation shafts. Every meter they drilled brought new challenges, and no room for shortcuts. This wasn't just engineering, it was controlled chaos made safe. The team needed a weapon strong enough to dig through this unpredictable terrain without collapsing under its own pressure. That's where tunnel boring machines came in, and they weren't ordinary either. If you're loving this deep dive into one of Japan's greatest engineering feats, take a second to hit like and subscribe. It really helps us bring more stories like this to your screen. And trust me, the next part of this journey gets even crazier. To crack open a mountain, you need more than drills, you need monsters. And Japan brought them in the form of tunnel boring machines, or TBMs. These are giant mechanical worms, stretching over 100 meters long, fitted with rotating cutter heads that grind through rock like it's stale bread. But for this job, they weren't just powerful, they were precise. The terrain was far too inconsistent for a one-size-fits-all approach. Some areas were dense volcanic rock, others were soft and saturated, so the engineers customized each TBM to match the geology it would face. In tougher sections, they used double-shield TBMs, which could support the tunnel walls as they carved forward. In softer zones, earth pressure balance machines helped maintain stability by carefully controlling soil pressure inside the cutter head. But even with that tech, progress wasn't quick. Some days, these machines would advance just 3 or 4 meters, a snail's pace. Why so slow? Because they had to constantly scan for changes in rock condition, water pressure, and temperature. Inside the tunnel, sensors tracked every vibration, every shift in soil density, and every sign of trouble. The process looked something like surgery. Giant cutter heads moved with quiet intensity, pushing forward while concrete rings were slotted in behind to reinforce the tunnel. The Japanese also used a method called NATM, the new Austrian tunneling method, in combination with the TBMs, which meant manually reinforcing weaker areas using sprayed concrete and rock bolts. Everything was monitored in real time. If something went wrong, if a gas pocket appeared or a soft layer collapsed, work stopped immediately. This wasn't brute force, it was choreography. A precise dance of steel, sensors, and stone. One that had to be perfect, because even one slip could cause weeks of delay, or worse, a total collapse. But carving the tunnel was just the start. What happens when you put a speeding train inside a mountain and then the mountain starts to shake? Japan knew that building this tunnel without earthquake protection would be asking for disaster. So they didn't just reinforce the structure, they turned the entire tunnel into a giant safety system. Every few hundred meters, earthquake sensors were installed along the walls and tracks. These sensors talk to the train in real time. The moment seismic activity is detected, even from miles away, alerts go out, and the train begins emergency braking automatically. It doesn't stop there. Inside the tunnel, engineers built damping systems that act like shock absorbers. They're made of flexible joints and energy-absorbing pads that allow the tunnel to flex slightly during an earthquake without cracking. Instead of resisting the force entirely, the tunnel moves with it. Think of it like bamboo bending in the wind instead of snapping. In addition to seismic resilience, the tunnel was also designed to prevent fires and allow for safe evacuation. Along the length of the tunnel, there are reinforced emergency exits, pressurized safe rooms, and fire-resistant materials in key areas. If a train needs to stop inside the mountain, passengers won't be trapped in darkness or exposed to toxic smoke. There's ventilation, there's backup lighting, there are escape paths clearly marked and regularly tested. And even in total power failure, backup generators kick in. This isn't just good design, it's foresight. Japan has experienced tunnel disasters in the past. They learned the hard way. Now, they plan for every scenario. So, yes, the train is fast. Yes, the tunnel is long. But it's also incredibly smart. And that's the only reason this entire system works. Because the technology doesn't just move people, it protects them. For all its elegance, this tunnel came at a price, and a steep one. The entire Hokuriku Shinkansen extension, including its many tunnels and bridges, cost over 3.5 trillion yen, or roughly 24 billion USD. A huge part of that budget went into boring through these mountains safely and efficiently. But where did the money come from? Japan used a mixed funding model. Part of the money came from the Japan Railway Construction, Transport and Technology Agency, JRTT, a government agency tasked with national transport infrastructure. The rest was split between the central government and the regional governments along the train's path, like Fukui, Ishikawa, and Toyama prefectures. These local governments had a lot to gain, so they had to pitch in. But there were problems. Digging through mountains revealed unexpected ground conditions, softer than planned in some places, wetter in others. That slowed things down and drove costs higher. New materials had to be flown in. Additional safety tech was installed mid-construction. Every adjustment added more yen to the final bill. Still, the investment wasn't just about moving trains. It was about what those trains would bring: tourism, business, revitalized communities. Regions that were previously cut off would now be just hours from Tokyo. Local leaders argued that the long-term benefits outweighed the short-term spending, and for now, Japan seems to agree. There's also a hidden cost not often talked about: maintenance. This isn't a build-it-and-leave-it project. Keeping the tunnel running smoothly will take ongoing funds, especially with wear and tear from high-speed travel and potential future earthquakes. It's an expensive machine, and one that never really stops moving. Still, ask anyone along the route, and they'll tell you it's worth every yen. By the time the tunnel was complete, it wasn't enough to say it looked good on paper. It had to work, under pressure, at full speed, and in real-world conditions. That meant test runs. Lots of them. The first full-speed trials began in 2023, using trains packed with sensors instead of passengers. Engineers measured everything: vibrations, cabin pressure, airflow, sound levels. They even tested what would happen if a sudden stop was triggered inside the tunnel. Would the train brake in time? Would the ventilation hold up? Could emergency exits be reached in under 3 minutes? One of the most intense drills involved simulating an earthquake during a test run. Seismic data was fed into the system, and the train had to respond automatically. It did, braking smoothly, stopping safely, and keeping all internal systems online. The relief among the team was massive. After years of planning, the system was doing exactly what it was built to do. But it wasn't all smooth. In 2019, a landslide caused by heavy rains blocked access to a portion of the construction site. Crews had to pause work for nearly 3 weeks while the slope was stabilized. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but it was a reminder of how unpredictable the terrain could be. There were also minor issues during pressure tests. Some early passenger cabins reported popping ears and pressure discomfort when entering tunnels at full speed. Engineers quickly adjusted cabin pressurization to fix it. These weren't failures, they were corrections. Japan's engineers treat every glitch as data, not defeat. By the time the final inspection was done, the tunnel and train were in sync, ready to face the public with confidence. For years, the Hokuriku region, home to cities like Kanazawa, Fukui, and Tsuruga, was beautiful but distant. Buses were slow. Flights were expensive. Trains were reliable, but too slow to compete with major urban centers. Then came the Shinkansen, slicing hours off the journey and bringing Tokyo within reach. Now, locals can travel from Kanazawa to Tokyo in under 3 hours, and that one shift has changed everything. Tourism is booming. People who once skipped the area now come for weekend trips. Ryokans, traditional inns, hot spring resorts, and historic towns have seen a surge in bookings. Even during the test phase, nearby towns began prepping for a new wave of visitors, adding signs in multiple languages, hiring more staff, and upgrading stations. But the impact goes beyond tourism. Businesses in Hokuriku can now reach clients and suppliers in Tokyo the same day. Farmers and craftsmen can ship goods faster and fresher. Some families priced out of city life are even considering relocating because now they can live in a peaceful town and still commute to work in the capital. It's also brought hope. For decades, young people left these areas, chasing careers in bigger cities. Now, with better connections, they're starting to stay or even return. The train hasn't just moved people, it's started to shift how people think about place, opportunity, and the future of rural Japan. And all of this came from one decision: to bore a tunnel straight through a mountain and refuse to be slowed down by the land itself. The question always comes up: if Japan can build a bullet train through an earthquake-prone mountain, why hasn't the US or Europe done the same at scale? The answer isn't simple, but it's not impossible. Take California's high-speed rail project, for example. It plans to tunnel through parts of the Sierra Nevada, but progress has been slow due to land rights issues, political gridlock, and rising costs. Japan, by contrast, operates with centralized planning and fewer legal obstacles when acquiring land. Their experience with megaprojects spans decades, giving them an edge in decision-making and execution. In Europe, projects like Switzerland's Gotthard Base Tunnel have proven that mountain tunneling for high-speed rail is absolutely possible. But Japan's blend of speed, seismic safety, and minimal disruption sets a different benchmark. Their TBM precision, real-time earthquake response systems, and efficient coordination are hard to replicate without a similar national focus. That's not to say it can't be done. In fact, Japanese firms have already been tapped to consult on high-speed rail proposals in India and Indonesia. The real obstacle isn't technology, it's the political and logistical will to prioritize long-term infrastructure over short-term costs. In short, Japan's tunnel isn't just a marvel, it's a global blueprint for what could be if others are willing to follow through. Japan isn't slowing down. The Hokuriku Shinkansen isn't the end of the line, it's a stepping stone. Next up is the extension toward Osaka, closing the gap between the Sea of Japan and the Kansai region. Each new tunnel pushes the limits of what's possible, and each success increases public trust in the system. But the real future lies with the Chuo Shinkansen, Japan's upcoming maglev line between Tokyo and Nagoya. This train won't just go fast, it'll float, using magnetic levitation to reach speeds over 500 kilometers an hour. And yes, much of it will also run through mountains. Internationally, countries are watching. Japan's success with mountainous tunneling is already influencing rail projects in places like India's Mumbai-Ahmedabad corridor, and parts of Norway are studying their techniques for cold climate tunneling. Sustainable methods like recycling rock from excavations into building materials are being refined too. As climate change demands greener travel and cities grow more connected, high-speed tunnels may become the arteries of the future. Japan's example shows it's not just about trains, it's about what those trains make possible. So, as high-speed tunnels shape our future, remember, these projects make the impossible possible. If you're planning your own adventure, I booked my last trip to Cancun for half the usual price with Expedia. There's an affiliate link below that gets you the same deals. No extra cost, just real savings. If you found this video valuable, consider buying me a coffee. It keeps me energized to bring you more in-depth stories like this. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. And if you want to see how humans took on the ocean itself, stick around. Next up, I'll reveal the wild story behind China's record-breaking sea tunnel. You won't believe how they did it.